moving to Pakistan now, where there is a very tense political situation with former Prime Minister Imran Khan facing off against the current government and all of their police forces, it seems. And we are very happy to be joined as we continue the show by Azhar Imran, who is a lecturer of political science at Punjab University. Professor Imran, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you very much to be inviting me. It's a pleasure to be back with the show. Thank you.
Well, it's great to have you here. And, maybe for those who haven't been fully following this here in the United States in particular, all we've probably seen is that Imran Khan is facing off with a lot of police officers. I mean, what is the issue that is at stake here between the former prime minister and the current government?
Well, I think as I talked about right after last year, April, since the vote of no confidence that was backed by the military against Prime Minister Khan, because Prime Minister Khan had conflict over foreign policy and a lot of the national security issues with the military, who has been throughout the history controlling Pakistan's security and foreign policy. And since then, we have seen a political, economic, and constitutional crisis since last year, April, because, after throwing out Mr. Khan from power, the military also wanted to take over the control of the Punjab province, which is the largest province in Pakistan, and which makes the final decision that which party will form the government in the federation in the center because of its number of seats in the legislative assembly in the center. And there was a by-election in the Punjab in which the Prime Minister Khan won 15 seats out of the 20 and ensuring his government in the Punjab province. So pressure on to snap poll so that Pakistan could get out of this constitutional, economic, and political crisis. Khan led, his party to dissolve the provincial assembly in the Punjab and in the northwest frontier province, the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, which is next to the Afghanistan, so that a snap poll in the center could also be called in. So to create pressure on the Mr. Khan to not dissolve and demand the, constitutionally mandated snap elections, the government, of course, with the supporting and backing of the military and other law enforcement agencies, are registering FIRs against Mr. Khan so that he could back down from his demand of the snap polls. And till today, there were 4 or 5 new FIRs against Mr. Khan. And he, last week when appeared in the court, jokingly said that I used to score centuries in the cricket as an old cricketer, but right now I'm going to score a century of FIRs on me. The most of the FIRs are, of course, politically motivated, based on bogus charges. And after following the registration of these FIRs, the police and the other law enforcement agencies, including the paramilitary force known as Ranger, which is controlled by the Pakistan military, had an attack to arrest Mr. Khan on his home, despite he was given a pre-arrest bail from the High Court in the Punjab province. And once the Mr. Khan took the route to Islamabad, the federal capital, to appear in one of his cases, in his absence, his home in Lahore was actually attacked by the police and the law enforcement agencies. And following his attacks, right now, almost 1,000 of the workers of the Khan's party, known as the Justice Party, has been arrested all over Pakistan. And even their whereabouts are unknown because most of the workers who have been arrested have not been shown in police records, and the crimes and the charges have not been brought against him. So we actually don't know what's going on. So many of the analysts are calling that since 1971, when Pakistan went into a civil war and the country lost its eastern wing and new state Bangladesh was born out of that, since the last 1971 civil war, it is perhaps the biggest challenge in a state's political, economic, and constitutional crisis.
When we talk about what's happening in Pakistan, I mean, how much of this has to do with outside interference? There have been many, claims that there is the U.S. hand might be involved. Other countries may be involved. There's also a lot about the sort of, last time I had you on dispatches, which, by the way, I did have Professor Azhar on dispatches. I recommend people go check that out to learn more about the sort of foundational issues that started last year with the political turmoil in Pakistan, but also how much of this is related to the military, because you talked a lot about how there was a lot of antagonism between the military and Imran Khan.
Well, Ronnie, is very clear, as we spoke last year, right after the vote of no confidence. Primarily, it was a conflict between Pakistan military and, of course, the Imran Khan. Because in the initial 2 years, military had a control over security and the foreign policy. But gradually, since Mr. Khan started feeling comfortable as a prime minister, he started to, endorse his own policy position, which he has been carrying since the 9/11 and the post-war on terror. And that was, the many of the Pakistani liberals accused him being sympathetic to the Taliban because he was very opposed to the American-led war on terror. So it was primarily a security and foreign policy conflict. And the triggering point was, of course, when the Prime Minister Khan, demanded that Pakistan should stay neutral between the ongoing conflict between Iran and Saudi Arabia, and also Prime Minister Khan opposed the Trump administration's, sanctioning of Iranian regime and also withdrawal unilaterally from the nuclear agreement, joint comprehensive plan of agreement that we had in that. So given that, it created conflict with Saudi Arabia as well. And then the military started feeling uncomfortable. And then there came the demands and the pressure from the CIA and from the Pentagon that they were asking Pakistani military establishment to provide them the air and the land corridor for so-called counter-insurgency attacks against the ISIS or the terrorist outfits. While the Prime Minister Khan had maintained that position, that it would actually not only politically, suicide for Mr. Khan, but also it will take away his legitimacy as a Prime Minister, and he would be seen like an Ashraf Ghani or Hamid Karzai as a puppet of the American Pakistan. So Mr. Khan said absolutely not, that Pakistan will not provide any air or land corridor to the CIA and the other American-led armed forces for attacking for whatever purposes inside Afghanistan, because it will jeopardize its trust relationship with the Afghan Taliban, which the Prime Minister Khan-led government was trying to reach some kind of agreements for the broader regional stability. And Mr. Khan argued that the only possibility is that you can share the information and the intelligence, and Pakistan Armed Forces and its intelligence agencies will operate from the Pakistani soil, and we will not surrender our sovereignty, because the repercussions of handing over air or land corridor to the U.S. Armed Forces would be huge. That we have seen, the emergence of the many regional terrorist organizations, primarily against the American drone strike, inside Pakistan, Afghanistan, and that caused a major conflict between Pakistan Army and the Imran Khan, where the army decided to depose him, because the army was looking from two perspectives. One, they did not want that we should throw all the eggs in the Chinese basket, but they also wanted to have some, of course, financial benefits from the American establishment while providing air and land corridor to the CIA and the other. And the major conflict emerged when last time the CIA chief visited Pakistan, and Mr. Khan refused to meet him, and he said that only the Pakistan's army chief or the ISI chief, who is premier intelligence chief, would meet the CIA chief because it's against protocol. The Prime Minister should be seeing him, though Prime Minister Imran Khan had a short meeting. So I think these were the major conflicts. So we don't know exactly to what extent the Americans were involved in regime change. But certainly what we could understand from history and the evidence that has come on the surface, that the establishment and the Pentagon were not on board as long as the Mr. Khan is concerned. And certainly the Prime Minister, the way the Prime Minister Khan government was taking the foreign policy, and particularly in Afghanistan and on Iran issue, the American Pentagon and the establishment, which has been very close to the Pakistani deep state, the military establishment, the intelligence, were not comfortable with. So it was an internal division of Mr. Khan with the intelligence agencies and the military, as well as military and the Pentagon might have been on the same page that Mr. Khan's political positions were not only against the strategic interests of the military inside Pakistan, but also America's strategic interests. So it was a kind of a conflict. The military might have got a signal from the U.S. that we cannot work with Mr. Khan as long as he's the Prime Minister. So may not necessarily the direct intervention had come from the Americans, like we have seen in Latin America and in the Middle East, the way Americans intervened. But it was a message to the military that if they go ahead while throwing Mr. Khan out through a constitutionally mandated coup, we will be okay with that. So that was a kind of a arrangement that led to the ouster of Mr. Khan from the government. And since Mr. Khan has been out of the government, he has been on roads, organizing rallies, staging protests, and the millions of people had followed. And that we have seen in the recent polls. And these polls have been conducted by the, Gallup. Gallup is one of the, Americans' extension in the Pakistan who conducts, biannually political polls regarding the popularity of the parties and the leaders. And in the recent poll that was conducted just a week before, the Gallup, who's been very, opponent and critical of Khan's foreign policy, admitted that Mr. Khan's popularity stands at 65%, and that can easily win him a two-thirds constitutional majority that could lead to the control over the military and the constitutional reforms, and certainly, crippling the powers and the control of the military over judiciary and the bureaucracy. And that's why right now their fundamental, effort is that somehow the election should be delayed. So not only the Election Commission of the Pakistan had announced yesterday that they will not follow the constitution while the elections in the Punjab and the KP province, where Mr. Khan's party was ruling, are cancelled for 5 to 6 months, while the constitution says that the election must be taking place in 90 days once the assembly has stands dissolved. So that is against the constitution. Though the Chief Justice of the Pakistan has said that they will stand with the constitution, but the reports are coming that there is a huge pressure from the military and the intelligence agencies on the Supreme Courts and its judges that they should create somehow a doctrine of necessity, an old phrase that has been very unpopular in our legal history, which has been used by the judges of the superior courts to justify military's intervention in politics. So the military is again demanding from the Supreme Court that they should use the doctrine of necessity to ensure and provide some legal, justification for the delaying of election. While there are reports in the media and the people close to the military intelligence are saying that military at the same time is planning to arrest Khan on the colonial, legal structure that existed in Pakistan, which is called as the preventive detention, that if a political figure becomes a threat to the country's law and order, you can put him under preventive detention for 6 to 9 months. So military is planning to put Mr. Khan using the colonial laws under preventive detention, while that will provide military some room to crush his popularity, to weaken his party, and then break his party to get the desired result in the election. So Mr. Khan has made it very clear that he's willing to go to jail, but he will not surrender. And following this, reports coming in the media, thousands of the workers have actually surrounded the Mr. Khan at his home in Lahore and resisting, the arrest of the Mr. Khan, which many of his worker claims is illegal and unconstitutional. And that led to the last week clashes between the police and the law enforcement agencies and Mr. Khan. And after 24 hours operation, with the backing of thousands of the police officers, still the police failed to arrest Mr. Khan.
Wow. Well, this is quite an inflection point moment, it seems, for Pakistan, and we're going to have to keep following this. And we really appreciate you, Professor Imran, for being with us here on the Freedom Side to help us sort through it all.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you people. Pleasure.